Bangladesh is burning and minorities in the country are under attack. Arson, vandalism, violence and even arrests, all in the recent past against Hindu religious leaders, especially has now underlined the country's challenges in maintaining its legacy in the aftermath of Sheikh Hasina's ouster. Fears of resurgence of Islamist political parties and intolerance towards other religions is clear and even present there. The Yunus government is doing very little to calm tempers and end the violence, despite the world condemning them for it. The Bangladeshi issue has now taken centre stage in the British Parliament as well. British MPs Priti Patel and Barry Gardiner have raised these concerns in the UK Parliament. They have called upon the Starmer government to set out how they are planning to engage with the Bangladeshi government on this pressing and important issue of atrocities against Hindus. On the other hand, after a court in Chattogram postponed the bail hearing for Hindu monk Chinmoy Das by 1 month, citing the absence of any legal counsel, the US State Department has urged Bangladesh to ensure legal representation for all detainees, stressing the importance of adhering to basic human rights principles. Meanwhile, amid tensions between India and Bangladesh, India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri is also likely to visit Bangladesh next week for a Foreign Secretary-level meeting after the interim government headed by Muhammad Yunus came to power. Remember, it will be the first high-level visit by a senior Indian government official to Bangladesh since the interim government came to power on 8th of August after the ouster of Sheikh Hasina as the Prime Minister.
Since the fall of the previous government in August of this year, Bangladesh has seen more than 2,000 incidents of violence, most of which have been targeted against the minority Hindu community. On Friday, this came to a head when extremist groups from the Jamaat-e-Islami party attacked 2 Hindu temples in Chittagong and conducted a campaign of orchestrated violence against the Hindu population. A leading Hindu monk, Chinmoy Krishna Das, who is a former leader of the ISKCON Krishna consciousness movement, has been arrested. The situation is clearly on a knife edge, and with such large diaspora populations in the UK and with large Hindu communities with strong links to the community in Bangladesh, I'd ask my honourable friend what more she can do to have discussions with the Bangladeshi government to ensure that, and with other partners in the region, to ensure that tensions are lowered.
This UQ is an important subject, and he's also raised the arrest of the ISKCON leader, and it's a place of worship I too am very familiar with, near his constituency. But Mr. Speaker, these are deep and long-standing ties between our two countries, and the Minister herself is right to point out that even though she's visited Bangladesh recently, as my honourable friend, the member opposite, has said, the degree of escalation in the violence is deeply, deeply concerning. And what we are witnessing now is just uncontrolled violence in many quarters. What efforts has the government undertaken to build upon the last government's work to promote freedom of religion and belief in Bangladesh? And can the Minister say what discussions are taking place with other international partners to help restore this kind of stability that we desperately need to see in Bangladesh?
So we are consistent with every government in which we have a relationship with. We are clear that there needs to be the respect of fundamental freedoms. There needs to be respect of religious freedom and basic human rights. Any kind of protest should be and need to be peaceful, and that any kind of crackdown, not even crackdown, that governments need to respect the rule of law. They need to respect basic human rights as a part of that. And that's something we'll continue to emphasize. So I don't have the details surrounding that case, but again, we continue to stress and emphasize that even those who are in detention need to be afforded appropriate representation and need to be treated with basic fundamental freedoms and human rights.
Finally,
now, Barry Gardiner, the UK Member of Parliament, also spoke with CNN News 18's managing editor, Mr. Zaka Jacob, and emphasised that any support provided by the UK to an interim government should be a conditional one. Listen in.
You've raised the issue of Hindus being attacked in Bangladesh. You've also called for sterner action by the British government and by the British Minister Catherine West, who had recently visited Dhaka. what response have you received, if any, to the proposals that you have put forth to the government as to what they can do to hold the interim government in Bangladesh accountable?
Well, look, I know that the minister from the UK was in Bangladesh just a few weeks ago, and she did raise the issue of human rights. But I was disappointed, quite frankly, yesterday that she did not, at that stage, say that she would go back, that she would call in the Bangladeshi ambassador. I think that's very important. And we need to have that robust conversation, because it's not enough just to say, well, we know you're doing your best. That was, in effect, what the minister said yesterday. She said that the assurances that she had got were from President Yunus, who had said that they were setting up these teams within the police to ensure that there was no racial violence. Clearly that has not worked, and we now must be very clear that we are insisting upon this, and that much of the support that we've been giving to the Bangladesh administration, this interim government, will be dependent upon that. This is a matter of human rights. It's a matter of stopping the racist attacks that have been done against the Hindu community in Bangladesh.
Do you think that the Yunus government is not keeping its end of the bargain, which is to protect its own citizens, and it has an even bigger stake in protecting its minority citizens?
Well, look, you know very well that the percentage of the population in Bangladesh that is Hindu has declined markedly over the past decade or so. We're now down to less than 10% of the population being from a Hindu background. So people have voted with their feet. They have simply left the country. And I'm afraid that that is because there has been repeated outbreaks of aggression and violence against the Hindu community. So there's always been a tension in Bangladesh, as you well know. The 1971 constitution was a secular constitution, and that was a very good thing. But that was overturned in 1988 to make the country an Islamic republic. And now what we've seen, and look, I make no pronouncements on the new government, and I don't want to cast aspersions on the old. All I know is that the previous Awami League, for whatever failings they had, and there were certainly many of them, they did try to keep the tensions that exist under control.